Now I've been called to this job on a late night on the weekend because the air has stopped. Now it's really important that fish have oxygen. Now oxygen would be the second most important thing, probably other than water. So having spare air pump or a spare pump or any sort of AC battery backup or anything like that is a highly advisable idea. And you could get really fancy and you could put something like a even alarm on your power, because there's no surface agitation at all there. And what that means, if there's no surface agitation, that means that the oxygen will not exchange with the surface. And so that means that this tank is literally a time bomb, because what will happen is these fish are breathing and breathing and breathing, and the oxygen is getting sucked out of the water, and then eventually there'll be a lack of oxygen in the water. Then the fish will start dying. So getting the oxygen back on is very, very important. Now, I'm very happy that I've been called early enough, because besides the fish are sort of slowed up a little bit, the fish pretty well look okay, but they are breathing heavy. Like for example, look at this guy. That's much heavier than it would normally be breathing. And when he's breathing heavy, not getting enough oxygen, and that's going to stress, and then that stress is going to potentially kill the fish. So I'm going to look into it now and work out the best way to get the oxygen back on until I can get the diver here on Tuesday to fix it properly. But yeah, they're all breathing very heavily. So a tank with no surface agitation is absolutely and totally a time bomb. So that's where redundancy becomes everything. So I was lucky that I was in a position today to come straight down, but if I wasn't in a position to come straight down, there is a lot of money's worth of fish in this tank, and it would be nothing short of a tragedy if we did lose these fish due to not enough oxygen. So it appears this pump has stopped working. And that's obviously a problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove some water, and then I can get the hose in here, and then the hose can start agitating the surface, and that will give the fish some oxygen while I am working out how to solve the problem. So we want to see these fish, we want to see these mouths stop gasping. And the quickest way I'm going to do that is by pumping the hose in here and getting some oxygen in here. So I'm seeing an instant change in dynamics for the fish. All the little fellas are all starting to come up. Now what I've actually done is just run the hose. Now this is a short-term solution. I will make sure that every 5 centimeters I redose the aquarium with some water ager, and you really can only do this for about a quarter of the tank volume, particularly because it's winter here in Australia, or nearly winter. So therefore, if I continue doing this, I will give the fish a cold flush, so that will increase the chance of the fish getting white spot when there's already a significant chance of them getting white spot. Because when you see this sort of behavior, where the fish are sort of like gasping on the surface, that's indicating that they're already stressed. So the last thing that I want to do is give them a cold flush and stress them out more. But I do need to make sure that I'm aerating this water, and agitating the surface is the best way to do it. So this will buy me some time, while I look at how to fix this pump. Now the other issue that makes this situation particularly pressing, not having the filter running, is how heavily populated this tank is. When there's a lot of fish in the tank, then oxygen becomes a lot more of a problem. So really, redundancy is the key. Running even a second pump would be something worth considering. But next I need to look at why this has happened. So I'm seeing significant stress, and treating the fish for white spot when I'm finished would be an advisable idea. Because when I'm seeing behaviours like that, yeah, they are showing signs of stress now. So that'll be helping big time. Okay, so for some reason that circuit is not working, but if I bring the pump to this circuit, that is working, but that doesn't help me at all, because all it's doing is blowing air into the fish tank, and it is not powering the air stones. So those connectors have come off, which I can get the diver to go in and fix. So air shooting across the top of the tank is better than nothing, but it's not solving our problem yet. Now I did unplug this power point, which goes to this transformer, which goes to a light, but when I switch the light on and off, I can't see any difference. So I'm not sure that that light actually works. So switch it on, no difference. So if that light worked, we need another power point here, but it doesn't seem to work. So unplugging this and plugging the pump in shouldn't make any difference at this stage, because some of these lights are old and need replacing. Now that this pump is off, what I'm worried about is water flowing back down this pipe. So I've actually just very unconventionally jammed a check valve in the end of this. So therefore water shouldn't be able to come down here, because this is all clogged up. Just in case water decides to run down that line, which sure can happen when there's no longer water or air getting pumped into the tank. There can be a back siphon. So that should stop that. So the tank seems to be running at 26 degrees, which is a good temperature. The fish will often gasp at the top like that if the temperature is too warm, which does not seem to be the case. Okay, so now it's time to see what happens. I've got a low one and a high one, a low one and a high one. I've just jigged up this little manifold, MacGyver style. So now I'm going to turn it on and see what happens. Hopefully they're not going to blow out. And look at that, working perfectly. If anything, it's probably working better than it was working before. So now we'll watch these fish slowly come to life, watch them slowly stop gasping. I'll go up and turn the hose off now, give it plenty of water ager, and this is temporarily problem solved. That guy there is not looking so good, breathing quite heavy and got cloudy eyes. So we'll look at taking some precautions now, but the air is solved. Murphy's Law. This is late on a weekend night and nobody's home, and that is when these sorts of things happen. So that's why you always want to be prepared with extra stuff where possible. Now there's quite a few fish in this aquarium that I'm really interested in seeing how much I can colour them up. So I'm going to add a bit of ultra red, which is a very high quality food from New Life Spectrum. And I really want to see what it does for some of these oranges. I want to see if it really reds up these oranges and hopefully makes the fish more colourful. Now, two more precautionary things I've done in this situation is I've added a precautionary dose of white spot cure, because stressful situations like this often allow immune system to fall and white spot to set in. So I've put in a dose of white spot cure, particularly because it's winter as well, and it is white spot season. I'd hate to end up with white spot, even though we've solved the problem. So that's something to look out for, any itching and scratching. The other thing is this aquarium has been running at a fairly low GH level, and that's mainly because rainwater can actually go into this tank. So I have actually raised the GH as well. And the GH salts will be very, very good right now for detoxifying nitrite and so forth, and encouraging body slime, and improving immune system. And then salt has various antibacterial and anti-parasitic properties. So having extra salt in the water right now is going to be very important. So the salt that I've added will improve the situation, but it's still not enough to raise it up to the actual level. I would need to have added more, but some is better than none. And all the fish are responding very nicely. So hopefully that's crisis averted anyway. Just be aware with all of your pipes, over time they become brittle and they become very hard to work with. So you can jig up situations like this, which are temporarily fine, but over periods of time, all this stuff becomes brittle. So every number of years, you really want to give any of your tubing a replace, and definitely your air stones and stuff over a period of years, you do want to replace them, because everything becomes brittle, and when things become brittle, that's when they become prone to fail. So I'm very happy to say that the fish are basically looking good as new now. That amount of air, which is more than I've seen in a long time, if anything, they probably start looking better.